Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Ferris, Vice President of Marketing for BTL. We at BTL view COVID as a marathon and not a sprint. Together, we're going to get through this pandemic. I view our responsibility as one to provide all stakeholders the education and tools necessary to cross that finish line. Today, we have assembled a panel of 5 world-class thought leaders. They are Dr. David Goldberg, Terri Ross, Wendy Lewis, as well as Suneel Chilukuri and Dr. Barry DiBernardo. I would actually like to give a quick bio about each, and then we'll get started with Dr. Goldberg. So, Dr. David Goldberg is an internationally recognized cosmetic dermatologist that's noted for his contributions to advancements in technology as well as education. Some of you may not know, Dr. Goldberg also holds a law degree, and he's going to be presenting on the legal and regulatory consequences of COVID. Terri Ross, she's a consultant that has worked for both practices as well as industry. Terri is currently actually a board member of AmSpa and has had her hand in a number of turnaround success stories. Today, Terri is going to focus your attention on the 3 main financial statements and understanding why expenses aren't your problem. Wendy Lewis is going to follow Terri. Without a doubt, Wendy is an international legend in our industry. She has her pulse on the latest ways to drive awareness and interest and brings compassion to the industry as a whole. We're then going to change gears and look at the tactics 2 internationally recognized cosmetic physicians are implementing in their practice today. We'll first start with Suneel Chilukuri from Refresh Dermatology. Dr. Chilukuri is known for his cosmetic artistry and education. He's going to focus on the tactics he's actually implemented within the past few weeks that will benefit him in both the short and long term. Barry DiBernardo will then close us out. Dr. DiBernardo is known for being a top 25 plastic surgeon in the United States, and he actually lived throughout the 2008 financial crisis. And he's going to actually share his thoughts on what tactics should be implemented today so you can also survive this crisis. And without no further ado, I'd like to now turn the ball over to Dr. Goldberg. Dr. Goldberg, the floor is yours. And with that, I'd like to turn the ball over to Dr. Goldberg. Dr. Goldberg, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot. My topic is medical legal issues in the era of COVID-19. Generally, when I give lectures, it's in the area of energy-based device technology, dermatology, but tonight I'll throw away that hat and I'll put on my legal hat.
And without further ado, I'd like to turn the floor over to Dr. Goldberg. Dr. Goldberg?
Thanks a lot. I'm going to talk about medical legal issues in the era of COVID-19. In general, I tend to give lectures about energy-based technologies, lasers, aesthetic dermatology. But in this case, I'm going to remove my medical hat and put on my legal hat. And we'll talk about medical legal issues that impact on all of us, the practice of aesthetic medicine in this new era. Certainly no relevant disclosures except for the fact that I am an attorney on faculty at Fordham Law School in New York. And so what I'm going to talk about are 3 areas: medical malpractice, employment issues, and telemedicine. And in each case, I will start the introduction with the standard issues that relate to medical malpractice pre-COVID-19, employment issues, and telemedicine issues, all pre-COVID-19. And then I will move into issues that now impact on us in this new era. So for medical malpractice, first I'll talk about energy-based complications. I'll just give an example and go through the analysis of this and go through then particular issues that may arise in the current pandemic. And whenever we talk about negligence, there really are just simply 4 points that you have to think about. And that is, in order to lose a lawsuit, you can be sued for anything. But in order to lose a lawsuit in negligence, you have to have breached your duty. And the duty is, what should a reasonable physician be doing in this particular situation? What do your peers do? If you do what your peers do, you can be sued left and right, but you're not likely to lose a lawsuit. If you breach the duty, though, if you're not doing what other people do, and there is a connection, and that's called causation, there's a connection between the breach of duty and damages, which generally in the energy-based device arena is scarring, then you potentially can lose a lawsuit. So an example of that is a classic laser case of a Fitzpatrick 4 individual who had had some recent tanning but did not look tan, was not asked about the tanning, complained that the 3 previous hair removal treatments were not aggressive enough, and then was treated with a typical laser hair removal device at typical parameters and as was usually done by other people. And so here you can see on the left before treatment with the hair, and on the right a little bit of redness, and we've all seen that all the time. Problem is, a few days later you see this blistering that occurred, and then ultimately a year later on the right you see that hypopigmentation that appears to be permanent. And the issue here, of course, is this person had had some recent tanning. That gave them an exaggerated reaction to the laser, and that led to the permanent complication. And so going back to the legal analysis, the duty would have been to ask about a history of tanning. That was not done, so there was a breach, and there's a connection between that and the damages. In a lawsuit, what will happen? This might be a lawsuit that gets filed. Most of these lawsuits in the aesthetic arena of non-invasive devices are settled, but the treating physician and or provider breach their duty. Now, let's switch to COVID-19. A known employee tests positive for COVID-19. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, it is very likely to happen sometime over the next year or so. The physician becomes aware of this and does not close the office, or at least does not sanitize the office. Multiple other employees become sick, and then multiple patients become sick. A disaster, clearly. Duty, breach of duty, causation, damages. Well, what is our duty if an employee comes in and tells us they are actively ill with COVID-19? Obviously, 1, send them home. 2, everybody has now got to go into some sort of quarantine. And 3, the place needs to be cleaned out. Now, the reality is there may be somebody out there who sues one of us for them getting sick in our office without an employee or staff actually having the disease. And then it's very hard to prove that case for the plaintiff, for the patient, because obviously this virus is everywhere. So in a lawsuit, what's going to happen, nobody can tell you at this point. The way we know how lawsuits go is there are previous case law in that area. There has yet to be a COVID-19 lawsuit yet that relates to this issue, but it will arise. And all you can say is you have to do what your peers are doing, what the CDC recommends, social distancing. We've closed down one of our offices. 2 of our offices are still open for essential needs. We see less people per hour. Both staff and patients are required to wear masks and gloves. You have to practice the standard of care that other people are doing, recognizing this is an evolving arena that may change with time. So that's the negligence issue. Employment law in the era of COVID-19 also is becoming fascinating. And so in general, pre-COVID-19 and even now during COVID-19, when we think about our office employees, we have to think about the status of the employee and the nature of their employment. The classic employee, the receptionist, the medical assistant, is a true employee. They have defined benefits. They're paid usually hourly. They get a W-2. And they have to perform within the scope of their employment. That means they are generally at-will employees. So you can, as long as you show no discrimination, hire and fire at your will. That's in contrast to a contracted employee, which I'll get to. So at-will employees, as I said, employment and termination at will, as long as it's not discriminatory, generally they get an hourly salary. Contracted employees are bound by the terms of their contract, and they are paid an annual salary. And we'll get to the problems of that in the COVID-19 era, where people have annual salaries and yet they're not working. And normally the terms of that contract discuss the salary, benefits, basis for termination, and then restrictive covenants. In the pre-COVID-19 era, the most common cause of litigation was over restrictive covenants. Now, restrictive covenants simply state that the relationship with the company is one of trust and confidence. It relates to all records, trade secrets, referral sources. Often time and distance are the issues, and generally the contract will say money damages do not adequately compensate. The reasonableness standard is what is used for restrictive covenants by every court in the country, and that is really in terms of how long, time, and in terms of distance, how many miles. The reasonableness standard states that the restriction must last as long as is necessary for the departing physician and or other provider to be replaced, and for that replacement to show effectiveness, and for the public to disassociate the departing provider from the employer's practice. There really is no black letter rule as to what time is reasonable. Shorter is generally better, and most restrictive covenants that everybody has relate somewhere in the range of 2 to 3 years. That's considered reasonable. The most litigated issue, though, is not the time, it's the distance. And that's determined case by case, rural versus urban. Anywhere from 5 to 75 miles can be reasonable, 5 miles perhaps in New Jersey, 75 in Wyoming, and in New York City and Manhattan, it might be 6 blocks. It certainly should not exceed the drawing area of the practice, me being a dermatologist, and most courts do require the breaching physician to pay, or other provider to pay, monetary damages. That's the most common cause of a lawsuit over a contract in the pre-COVID-19 era. Now we've got COVID-19, and lots of other issues are going to arise if they haven't already started. Have you furloughed your employees versus terminating them? And in the end, as is the case for all lawsuits, the best way to avoid a lawsuit is simply to communicate with your employees. As I said, the contracted employees are complicated because they have guaranteed annual salaries. And how do we deal with that in the year of COVID-19? And the way most people are dealing with it is simply negotiating with their employees. Hourly employees, those who are paid an hourly salary, are a little bit easier. And so with the contracted employees, you've really got to look at those contracts, expect to have some issues. And then with the hourly employees, we've got a couple different possibilities. One, are you actually terminating them versus more commonly at this point at least, and that is furloughs or voluntary absences. As I said, communication is the best thing. Don't have phone conversations, or if you do, put everything in an email that confirms what you've said. You've got to have everything in writing. And what you need to say to people is, look, you are an at-will employee, and I actually don't need a reason to terminate you. But of course, it's much better to communicate and state the obvious. COVID-19 is the reason. Just be sure there is no discernible discrimination. In terms of the job description, why were particular employees terminated over others? There's got to be a reason for this. And if lawsuits are filed, what the Labor Board will look at is not the fact that you needed to cut back on your employees. This has been a catastrophe for every practice. They will look at to make sure that you showed no age, gender, race, or sexual identification discrimination. In that email, the practice can say, we may ask employees to return when the company is healthier. That is a good way to communicate. As I said, everything must be put in writing in an email. And the way to do this is, there are really several steps. Step one is, we've agreed that you will be taking the next whatever, days, weeks off because of children, social distancing, all the issues we're all dealing with. We both understand, the employer and the employee, for the at-will employee, that this absence is without pay. We'll revisit the situation every set number of period. 2 weeks is a good time. And the practice is allowed and will make across-the-board cuts in weekly hours as is necessary. Step two is to use some of that time off as paid time off if the employee is eligible for that. And so some of that time off can be paid to them as paid time off. After the PTO or paid time off is exhausted, there are a couple options for people. They can either file for unemployment, or in some cases they can file for family medical leave. And then the step three is, the employee is still responsible, as long as they have not been terminated, for his or her contribution to health insurance and other benefits shared costs. In our practice, the people that we have furloughed, we've actually paid for their health insurance, at least as of this point. And then, of course, there is this PPP, this payroll protection plan. which some of us have already gotten, some of us still hope to get as we go to round 2, and that may impact on how we handle our employees as well. And the last of our topics is telemedicine and the changes in telemedicine now because of COVID-19. So telemedicine essentially, and teledermatology in my case, is simply communication technology. And today it's easy to conduct high-resolution video chats between mobile phones, computers, laptops, virtually anywhere in the world. Telemedicine is simply the use of telecommunication technology to deliver healthcare at a distance from the medical provider. And it's really been available for over 2 decades already. It's just starting to take off in dermatology. And I would argue COVID-19 is going to be the thing that makes telemedicine here to stay. It's been argued that during the Vietnam War in the 60s, that if telemedicine was available, it was not, but if it was available, 1/3 of American lives could have been saved, over $100 billion per year could have been saved, quality telemedicine was available, and it often does cut costs by eliminating needless tests, record duplication, and in the current arena, it keeps people out of the office. Telemedicine, of course, at its simplest level, is the physician providing advice by telephone. Today, though, represents the provision of diagnosis or treatment at a distance in reliance upon all the myriad technologies we have. And telemedicine has been used now over the last 2 decades extensively in primary care and radiology. It is now expanding to all fields. So, in a sense, there are 2 simple ways of providing telemedicine, and they're different. One is a physician providing advice by telephone to a patient directly, and the second one is a patient providing advice by telephone to another doctor who then provides that information to the patient. And the question is there a difference? And there is. And so if the advice provided turns out to be wrong and then a lawsuit is brought for negligence, in the first scenario, the physician has made a relationship with his patient by talking directly to the patient. He will be sued. In the second scenario, the first physician sought the advice of another physician, and that other physician never had a relationship with the patient. And so even though the physician who provided the advice is the one who was wrong initially, since he had no relationship with the patient, he actually cannot be sued. So there is a difference. As I said, teledermatology, which is now becoming very popular really in the last month, is the interaction of telemedicine and dermatology, my specialty. Of course, dermatology is a natural fit for telemedicine because it is uniquely visual. Methods of teledermatology historically have been phones, fax machines, and computer lines. Teledermatology has in fact been shown to improve access to care in patients in underserved areas, patients with rare diagnoses, patients who are homebound, and physicians who even may want to take some call from home. In the VA system, teledermatology has been looked at pre-COVID-19. And in fact, 86% of dermatologists have reported that teledermatology was a good addition to regular patient services. In the Kaiser Permanente hospital system, teledermatology has been shown to provide shorter time to biopsies in more remote areas, and also to improve triage methods. But teledermatology and telemedicine in general do bring up 3 issues. There are medical issues, there are social issues, and finally, there are legal issues. Medical issues first. What about the accuracy of the diagnosis? You're doing this over computer software. And so now there have been published studies already that show that patients randomized to receive care in person versus teledermatology, there was actually no evidence in the difference in clinical outcome at 9 months. With the high quality pictures we have today, it doesn't make a difference. There's also documentation that telemedicine, teledermatology can be a useful screening tool for melanoma. And because patients may seek care through teledermatology, telemedicine quicker, there may be a favorable effect on initial prognosis. Of course, that correlation is between the correct diagnosis and the quality of photographs. But photographs now are so much better. Of course, there's social issues as well. And that is always the concern about the impact of the patient-physician relationship when they're not in each other's space, when they're not touching each other, which may cease to exist anyway. The issues of support rather than replacing quality medical treatment. And then there are issues of informed consent and confidentiality. And lastly, legal issues. When you practice telemedicine, you have to be careful in terms of where the patients are coming from, because state licensure issues vary from state to state. Ultimately, there may be professional disciplinary bodies that get involved, standards of care, and then confidentiality through HIPAA. And HIPAA has been an issue until the COVID-19 era, as I will address. Most states do consider telemedicine as the practice of medicine. Therefore, if one practices telemedicine or teledermatology over state lines, a medical license is required in that state. And most states do require that a physician limit the practice to the state where he or she is licensed. An example would be a patient in an isolated Louisiana town seeks derm expertise for a pigmented lesion from a specialist in California. The specialist in California asks his staff to download patients' images, biopsies, and other medical records to aid in the diagnosis and treatment protocol. That specialist discovers the patient is pregnant and notifies his staff. Well, confidentiality may be broken in one state if the laws are different than in another state, because here we have Louisiana versus California. And so it turns out that in California, that patient's right to confidentiality was breached. Yet in Louisiana, the patient has no such right. And so when you start practicing telemedicine over state lines, there are licensure issues, but you can see there are other issues as well, because which state confidentiality laws apply? And we don't have an answer yet. The other limiting factors pre-COVID-19 were the physician fees for company HIPAA-compliant servers. We always had to be worried about the HIPAA violations if we were not able to keep the communications confidential. And then typically patients would have to log in and pay certain fees to use telemedicine. Some physicians would have patients sign a required insurance waiver for medical issues. Patients don't want to sign them because they have managed care. And of course, there are med mal issues, current versus new patients. Example, a 27-year-old South Indian woman with freckles, ephelids on her cheek, has a verbal discussion with her original dermatologist and a consultant dermatologist. The consultant dermatologist advised the original dermatologist to use a 532 nanosecond Nd:YAG laser. Because she was so dark-skinned, though, post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation occurred. We've got telemedicine involved here. We have people in different places, and we have different providers providing information. Where does she live? Were HIPAA issues violated? Will there be a lawsuit? And it isn't even worth being involved in telemedicine when historically you were not able to even code for it. Well, the way to minimize risk of liability has been to provide broad disclaimers. I'm giving you information, but you should still see a physician, and ideally to use telemedicine only on your own patients. Things have changed and changed dramatically in the era of COVID-19 in regard to HIPAA. And this is because of the Coronavirus Preparedness and Response Supplemental Appropriation Act, which was signed by President Trump on March 6, 2020. Although it applied to Medicare patients, it's now being extended to non-Medicare patients as well. And these are people who are at home, who would be eligible for telehealth services, where previously such home services were never eligible and we were not going to be paid. It applies to physicians, to PAs, physician assistants, and to NPs, nurse practitioners. All can bill. The requirements are of telecommunication technology that has both audio and video capabilities. There has to be two-way real-time interaction. Classic examples being FaceTime, Skype, WhatsApp, Zoom. Simply texting a picture and then calling the patient does not work. There has to be two-way real-time interaction. And what has changed is you can now code just as you were if you saw them in the office. So the same coding applies as to in-person visits. It's expected that the visit from beginning to end will be somewhere in between 5 and 10 minutes. But you have to document in your EMR, call a telemedicine visit, use the app, mention the app in your EMR. And if this is done, all penalties for HIPAA violations are removed. And so FaceTime, things of that sort, Zoom, these are not HIPAA compliant sources, but the penalties for HIPAA violations are removed as long as we healthcare providers are serving patients in good faith. So telemedicine is clearly now here to stay. Federal and state governments increasingly, I am certain, will get more involved in this. and increasing mobile and computer apps will lead to better performance of these new technologies, but this is here now to stay. Final disclaimer, these are a lot of legal issues, and some of this is evolving. No one wants to spend any money, particularly in this era, but the cost of a healthcare attorney is worth it, and my discussions here are for thought. They're not for legal advice. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Goldberg. And with that time, we're going to turn this over to Terri Ross. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Goldberg. That was an amazing presentation. And I want to just take an opportunity to thank John with BTL for this opportunity and collaboration. I know that we're all trying to do right by everybody and give back right now. So this is a really important talk that John asked me to give, and I think it couldn't be more vital than right now. And this talk is really going to be based upon the financial foundations of your practice. And so certainly it's unfortunate that we're in the middle of this pandemic. And we're all actually, probably taking more of an opportunity now to look at our financials when we should have been doing this all along. But I think it's a prime opportunity that we review what are the financial foundations and what's important. Because when we work with clients, a lot of times what we often get is, Terri, I don't know what, I don't really know what I'm looking at. Or the P&L is not organized and structured the right way. Or if they do know, they're like, I'm not really sure what to do with this information. So what I'd like to take and share with you over the next course of the next 25 to 30 minutes is really review the top 3 financial reports and then how you can use them to make informed decision. So the top 3 reports are really the review of the overall financial statements, what reports matter and why, which will allow you to make informed decisions, and then your expenses as it's related to the growth of your practice. So in my opinion, this is sort of financial statements 101. The most important financial statements are your profit and loss, which is also known as your statement of income. It's the balance sheet, which people get very confused about. And then most importantly, it is your statement of cash, which is your cash flow. And so, I'd like you guys to think about this for a moment and really, really ask yourselves, how often do you look at your financial statements? Do you review them monthly, which is what you should? Are you confused when you look at them? And then again, if you are looking at them, what do you do with the information? Because at the end of the day, and especially right now, obviously what we're trying to do is preserve our cash, but more importantly, we have to know what our overall expenses are just so we can keep the doors open. So let's talk about your profit and loss and what that is and why it should matter to you. So the P&L ultimately is to really help you make better decisions, because we all know that we want to make more money. We want to reduce our expenses. We want to make the most informed decisions, and whether that's buying a new piece of equipment, is your benchmarks in line, meaning is your marketing spend in line, is your payroll in line. You want to be able to quickly look at this report at the end of every month for 30 minutes, no more, and say, okay, what's working and what is not. And so your P&L is really made up of 5 most important sections, which is your sales. Okay, that is the summary of your revenue, your cost of goods, and or it could be cost of labor, your gross profit. Now this is not your net profit. Okay, this is sales minus your cost of goods equals gross profit. Your G&A, which is really made up of most of your fixed expenses, and then you have your net profit. So, we're all used to seeing before and afters, and I think this is really important to understand. So this is a typical income statement or a typical P&L. And I don't want you to focus on the numbers, but I want you to say, oh God, does mine look like that? And then I'm going to show you what a pretty picture, and how it should be structured and organized, and what the information, more importantly, is going to tell you. So if we just looked at what a P&L is, which is based on 5 core components, if you look at this P&L, it really has 3 sections. Okay, so it has the profit and loss, it has sales, and it has expenses. And so what I want to point out, if you look at the sales and you look at fees, it says $472,000. Well, what is the fees made of? So if I look at this, I have no idea. Is this surgery? Is this lasers? Is it injected? Like, what are the fees made of? So that's an issue. Products. What products are being sold? If we go down into the salaries, what makes up the number? So again, don't worry about the number. Yours is going to be respective to your personal practice. But you can see where I'm going with this. If you look under marketing, I don't even know if marketing's in here, but if you look, oh, advertising, right? What is made up of the advertising? What is made up of commission? So this, you guys, is not, this is a typical report, so don't feel bad if it is, but this is not an ideal P&L to really look at what your business is doing and how it's performing. And in addition, it's missing the most important section. It's missing percentages. So nobody wants to get out your calculator and start to calculate how much revenue or how much money is being spent against total revenue, which is how you understand what your benchmarks are and if they fall in line with what's right or what's wrong. So even let's look at the bottom, 61,000 net operating income. Is that good? Is that bad? I mean, I have no comparison to the year before. So what we want to really, again, focus on is understanding where your business is, and then more importantly, break down these categories into the respective sections so it tells you a story. Now look at this one. Do you see the difference? Just even at a quick glance of looking at this. Easy to understand, not daunting, like, oh God, I have to look at that report again. So let's kind of go through what this looks like. And this is how we coach our clients, again, how to set it up so that it's easy to understand and tells you the story. So if we look at surgery, very specific. Now we can, these are collapsed right now based on the category, but I could double click it and open it up so that it would say breast aug, liposuction, tummy tuck, facelift. Same with the non-invasive body contouring. We're on with BTL right now. Is it M-Cella, M-Sculpt, Exilis? Like what makes up these categories? But at least right now in the respective category, you can see what you made in surgery, what you made in laser skin resurfacing. Again, how much revenue did you make in the respective category? Very easy to understand. Yes? Great. Cost of goods. Okay. Also, when I look at a typical P&L, they typically put medical supplies all clumped in one. Is that surgical stuff? Is it gloves? Is it gauze? Like what makes up that medical supplies? Because we want to be able to, again, organize your P&L and put them in the correct category. So your cost of goods should be directly tied to the respective treatment. So hypothetically, you have Fraxel. What is that cost of goods? What is that net profit, right? You want to look at it exactly that way. So you really know what you're making, because at the end of the day, you guys, when we're looking at these statements, where we're also not understanding what we need to and what's happening right now is we have to say, God, what procedures make me the most money? How much revenue per hour is my staff, is my providers making? Because there are specific benchmarks, right, to that. And right now, when we know we have to cut the fat, that's the only way to cut the fat. Am I doing the proper procedures? Am I charging the right way? And do I have the right staff on board that is generating the appropriate revenue per hour? So again, you see these beautiful percentages at the bottom. And I think down here, what I want to also point out is it says net operating income 144,932. That does not mean cash. Okay, so your P&L is really a perspective and it's a period of time. The other thing I want you to realize is that, let's say you pay off all your bills. Okay, so what's important is knowing what your cost of goods is, let's say overall 30%. Okay, so every dollar you make after everything is paid is profit. Okay, so at the end of the day, the secret is really, increasing revenue, maintaining expenses, and then knowing where you need to make change, what's working and what's not. So here are some industry benchmarks. And, I sit on the board of AmSpa. I'm affiliated with a lot of the other plastic surgery societies. So this is a compilation of data pulled from different societies and different statistics and studies that have been out there. So depending on where you live, obviously this is going to change a little bit, specifically with rent. Okay, but that's a fixed expense. So rent should be around 4 to 6% of your total revenue. In Beverly Hills, obviously it's higher, and I'm sure other cities and states it's higher. Your retail, which again, people struggle. They want to sell retail, but they have a hard time doing it, or they don't know how much someone should sell. So it should be 20% of total revenue. Your marketing, around 10. This is going to be more if you're a startup. And there are very specific things that you should be spending that money on. And there are some things that make you no money, very low return on investment. Your payroll under 30. So a couple things that are always inflated is typically marketing, payroll, sometimes cost of goods if you don't have the right product mix. So COGs, again, depending on what laser, what injectable, what tier, if you're a startup, if you are a tiered level, you're going to be paying lower fees. But you want to definitely look at that. And again, correlate it to the respective procedure. Your merchant fees around 2.5 or under, back bar 7 to 10, benefits, which is really important. I think it's always very healthy to have compensation conversations with your team. You know, what they look at is what's in their paycheck, but as a company and as a business, you pay these, which is really, it comes to around about a little over $20,000. And it's important for your team to know that. You know, I think your warranties and repairs, what you don't want to do is negotiate that in the financing. So that's something to look at as well. So the important benchmarking for success is obviously you have your internal benchmarks, which again, you want your statements to be organized and understand. Your balance sheet, which we're going to get into next. People get very confused on the balance sheet, which is where debt lies. It does not lie on the P&L. Again, your P&L is of a period of time and a comparative benchmark, which is important to look at for you to make change. So what is a balance sheet? Okay, the balance sheet is a summary of assets, which is what you own, versus your liabilities, what you owe, which equals your equity. Okay, so this is where, again, balance sheet is one point in time. You might have cash in one day, and it's going to be different the next because you're paying money out of that. So when I showed you that $144,000 on the pretty P&L, that doesn't mean that that's actually cash that you have, because we have to go ahead and look at the balance sheet. So these are where loan payments, depreciation, and all of that comes in. So let's take a look at the balance sheet here. So when we look at the balance sheet, we want to really look at that your assets and your liabilities match up. At the end of the day, that's what should happen. They should match. We talked again about the P&L, about realizing that whatever is on the P&L for cash may not be the cash that you have on hand, because you're looking at debt, you're looking at principal, you're looking at interest. And as a business owner, this is also where it becomes important when you're looking at evaluation for the business and your EBITDA. So you want to make sure that your profit margins are at least over 20%. But more importantly, if I were to point something out here, if we look at 2018 to 19, it looks like medical equipment went up, which means the debt went up. And that's okay. And I think what a lot of people try to do is that they think, God, where do I need to cut? And it's not necessarily where you need to cut, as long as you're making the revenue within those categories. So obviously, you know, especially right now, cash is king, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is king. So it's really important for you guys to track where and when you receive the cash. This also comes into play where it's very confusing for practices that don't follow accounting principles in your patient management software. Because say, for example, you sell a series and the patient prepays, that money cannot be considered cash in your account. That unpaid balance needs to sit in a liability. You cannot count that income until the treatment is actually performed. And a lot of people just don't do it that way. So again, this is looking at your cash at the beginning and at the end of a period, which is going to come down to looking at your cash flow, which is most important. So when we look at expenses, you know, you guys, expenses are a reality, and it's okay to have expenses. It's just really important to look at, again, the percentages that are correlated on the P&L. And if you're within line, you know, everybody says, God, I need to try to cut here, cut there, especially right now. People are saying, should I not spend money in marketing? Well, you know, obviously we want to be empathetic. We want to be sympathetic to the situation. But Facebook ads are really, really low right now. And so if that was the type of marketing you were doing, it doesn't mean cutting. It just means we want to allocate the funds in the most important place. And we want to make sure, you know, whatever marketing efforts you're doing, you're understanding your cost per acquisition and what return on investment you're making. And so we want to look at, again, your benchmarks, your fixed expenses, your marketing, and then track where you're trending. So we talked about the typical, which we're not going to focus on, but when we look at the practice foundational financial statements, again, if you take away anything, and I hope you can go back, you'll get a copy of these slides, please take a picture of that P&L. Send it to your CPA. That is the way that it should be organized. I promise you, moving forward, you will feel much more confident about reading these statements. You will be able to look at it quickly at the end of every month and say, okay, this is working and this is not working, and you will have such a better opportunity to assess your practice and make informed decisions. So with that being said, I'm Terri with Terri Ross Consulting. You can follow me, follow my podcast on In Touch with Terri. I thank you so much for your time, and I hope this was valuable for you.
Thank you, Terri. We really appreciate your presentation. It was very fascinating. I'm hoping the audience took a lot out of it and can actually apply these principles. And with no further ado, I just want to turn this over to Wendy Lewis, who will now talk about how we can actually get back into marketing and how to market your practice. Thank you, Terri.
It's a pleasure to be joining John and the BTL team today. I hope to share some strategies with you that can help you plan your reopening. We're all faced with challenges now that we have to meet head on. There was no advance warning to adequately prepare us for something that has never happened before in the history of the world. So we've been caught off guard. Perhaps the greatest unknown is when life will return to a semi-normal state. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. This is going to be hard. It may be the hardest thing many of us have ever faced in our lives, but there will be a light at the end of this tunnel. We know that consumers have an insatiable appetite for aesthetic treatments, and that's never going to change. So you'll lose some patients during this period, but you'll also gain some new ones to replace them. I promise there will be new opportunities coming your way in the near future. Now let's get started. Here's my disclaimer, real quick. So we're now in post-pandemic game plan. Even though we're not out of the woods yet, a lot of practices are starting to look at when their states are allowing them to open, and it varies considerably across the country. So first, before you open, consider how your practice actually needs to change to meet the needs and expectations of patients today. They're going to be nervous. They're going to be somewhat skeptical and afraid to go to a medical practice right now. So I think it's important to position yourself as, we're on top of this. We got you. We're taking care of you. Your safety is our #1 concern. And think about what practices you need to establish for your patients, and as well as your staff and yourselves. You've got to space out appointment times, probably reconfigure a lot of the patient staff areas that you have in the practice, which I know is going to be very difficult in cities like New York, Boston, San Fran, where offices tend to be on the small side. Treatment rooms, you probably just want to have the patient and the person providing the treatment, not a lot of extraneous people if you can get around that. Set up hand washing stations in common areas, that's definitely necessary. And demonstrate the patients that you are really interested in their safety and are taking all precautionary measures. So, reopening your practice. #1, have a thorough professional cleaning. And I mean a cleaning, not like the usual cleanings that we normally have in a practice once a week or a couple of nights a week. Get a certificate if possible, and these will need to be scheduled at frequent intervals. Specific methods for daily cleaning crew will have to be demonstrated to disinfect surfaces, and the average practice has a lot of those. A policy for doctors and staff to be tested. How often is it necessary? Usually doctors are saying that temperature is clearly not enough. Define a protocol to also, how do you vet your patient's health? How do you find out before they even come into the practice if they're suitable for treatment or even to come in for a consultation? That policy has to be established. What questions you ask, what parameters you put in place. Update your intake forms. Have those be electronic, that they can download in a PDF version right off your website. Saves time, very efficient, and also you'll know a little bit about what their potential for COVID was or is. And some kind of a notice on the website that tells them right up front, this is what we're doing for your safety. Improve efficiency now because you're going to need it. You're going to have a leaner office, fewer patients at one time, right? So retune your practice to get ready for the next phase. Anything you can streamline using technology will save staff time, aggravation, and reduce costs. Add a chat bot to your website to respond to very simple questions, even like, you know, what days are you seeing patients? Do you take insurance? All those nice little things that don't need to actually have a phone call to answer. Reduce any amount of your day-to-day workload that weighs your staff down as much as possible. Now communicating with patients, and this is going to be a learning curve, I think, for everyone. Empathy cannot be underestimated. I think patients are really sensitive, like we all are, and every word you choose will have an impact. Whether you're speaking, and definitely in all of your marketing materials, think about the words you're using. I think we're all kind of over the typical words about crisis and you know, we're in it together kind of thing. Those cliches are starting to wear on people. So I would try to avoid recycling words that we've been using for the last 2 months, because this is entering the next phase. So it should be a positive attitude. But you can't ignore the health crisis because it's still out there and people are thinking about it. Tone down marketing jargon. I don't think this is the right time to position yourself as discount this and a little bit off that and anything very aggressive. It may be jarring to some of your more sensitive patients. Have an attitude of how can we help you? What are your needs? Rather than sell, sell, sell. That'll come later. I love the idea of custom masks and uniforms for staff because I think masks are going to be part of our lives for a very long time. You may even want to have them in the practice for the patients to use and take home. And I don't mean the paper ones; those are obvious, but something a little bit nicer and made of material that they can actually take home, because you want them to be using these masks, especially if they're patients of yours. You don't want them to get sick. Curate your treatment menu. Now is probably not the time to market everything you offer in your practice. And let's face it, most aesthetic practices have numerous types of treatments, obviously. So start with the most popular treatments that people come in for at usual intervals and that are reasonably affordable to more patients. Cast the widest net. Toxins and fillers are obvious. Peel treatments and skincare products and treatments in the practice, those are no-brainers. You definitely want to continue with that. And then start thinking about the least invasive treatments that you can offer in your practice now. So I think the suite of Emcella, Emsculpt, and Emtone are a really good option, especially Emcella because you don't even have to take off your clothes. Very easy to offer to a patient right now. IPL is another very easy one to offer. Most people like it, they want it. It's something they're comfortable with, gives them a lift, and it's repetitive. Laser hair removal would fall into this category too. Start welcoming your patients back. What information are they interested in, and what do you need to tell them? Be prepared to answer any questions they have because they may be very nervous because they haven't been to a doctor in so long, and right now all they see are healthcare workers on the news struggling and very stressed. Strike a nice calming tone that comes across as understanding but professional. So start with a knee blast. Announce your availability and what your days and hours are going to be, because your days and hours may change radically. I think you should plan to leave yourself more time with each patient that comes in. There will be no-shows, there will be cancellations. If you are a practice that normally charges a fee, you may consider waiving that fee. If you don't charge a fee for consultations, also you want to confirm them so you're not wasting your time sitting there with a lot of cancellations. Your time is very valuable now because frankly, you're seeing less patients. Again, because of the structure of the average practice, you're not going to be able to have a packed waiting room anymore. And offer select hours for VIP patients. This is really important. You don't want to have to push VIP patients out. You want to get them in as soon as possible, accommodate them because that's your bread and butter of the practice. Telemedicine, if you are not doing virtual consultations, The time is now. You're behind the 8 ball. Your colleagues are doing this, and patients really like this concept. It will not go away once the crisis subsides and we don't talk about it anymore. And I hope that's soon, but it doesn't look like it. Virtual consultations are now expected. They're now standard operating procedure across all specialties. The good thing is that HIPAA, the Department of Health and Human Services, has relaxed some of their regulations, which used to be extremely strict about encrypted technology. So you can use a technology that is not encrypted, at least for the time being. I personally would opt for an encrypted system just because we don't know what HIPAA is going to do in the future. All correspondence and notes should become part of an official chart. This is a consultation as if the patient was sitting in your office. And then the concept arises, and there's a lot of controversy on this, and you have to decide what's right for your practice and your patient population. Do you do these complimentary, no charge? Do you charge for them? Do you apply a fee paid towards the treatment they may have in the near future? It's all up to you. If you are not busy and you don't have a lot of people calling for appointments, I would suggest that you do complimentary consultations and see where they go. It's goodwill. It allows you to connect with a patient that you may not be able to see in person. So I don't think it's a waste of your time. I think actually you could really build your practice by doing virtual consultations. They particularly work well for non-surgical procedures. You can explain what EMSLA does. You can show before and after photos. You can treat this like a real consultation, and the technology allows you to do that. Smarter marketing. I think we have to get more targeted. Don't cut your marketing budget. You need it now, but market smarter. Cut out the stuff that isn't working, and you probably need to switch gears. Some of the strategies you used 3 months ago are probably not appropriate in this market. Think local. Patients are not traveling. So your marketing should be even more local than it may have been in the future. It may not even be feasible to do it regionally. I don't think people are going to travel more than, 30 minutes to get to a practice, maybe an hour if you're lucky, but they're not flying in. Flights are very empty, as you can see. Also, define who your real target audiences are. Who is going to come in, no matter what the climate, no matter what the financial situation is. And I have to argue that I think you're looking at women, and I think you're looking at women over a certain age. I don't think you're looking at millennials, and I don't think you're looking at men necessarily. I think women like myself, like I can't wait to get my toxin done again. We want these treatments, and we're going to come in. The younger group of women, maybe in the 35 range and up, those are very active aesthetic patients, and they're going to want to be in as well. Moms, they are going crazy, homeschooling and taking care of everything. They need to give themselves a break, and they want to feel like themselves again. So those are really good groups. I'm not saying that millennials and men are a waste of time to market to. I just personally wouldn't choose them as the first place I'd go. Also think about any kind of patient appreciation offers, little perks, a little extra this, a little extra that. You're doing a toxin treatment. Maybe the patient needs a little bit more, give it to her. Giveaways, raffles. Patients really need that right now. It makes them feel good, and it would make them more invested and loyal to your practice. Now let's talk about targeting new patients. Put yourself in the mindset of the patients that you really want to attract to your practice. What do you want to do more of? What is the most profitable procedure, and also involves the least amount of staff involvement that you offer in your practices? And a lot of the BTL devices really, they tick those boxes. Think about how they're feeling. They're scared. We're all scared. They're also unsure of things. Think about changing your pricing model. I hate discounts, but they're a fact of life. But instead of just offering a lower price, add more value for the same or similar price. I think any one of these new models, series pricing is extremely common now. Patients like it, they accept it. They're also very prone to seeing it from other types of service industries. Subscriptions are a great idea if you can pull it off, but you need really to control your database if you do that. Memberships, I think, work really well. Loyalty programs, to me, a loyalty program is essential in any aesthetic practice. It's standard. We expect it from every vendor we deal with as consumers. So why not an aesthetic practice? And it really does work to keep patients in your practice. To me, the best way to do it is the first time the patient spends money in the practice, they get a loyalty card. They're part of that program. And then they build up their points, or however you want to work this out, as they go. And there are perks along the way. Buy one, get one is a very common, also works really well for bundles. And bundling treatments and products, again, is a no-brainer. People love that. So again, you're not lowering your price, but you're giving them more so they see the enhanced value and it's more attractive. Social media strategy, focus, focus, focus. You don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to go crazy. If TikTok is not your demographic, like literally under 22, then maybe you want to reserve a channel for yourself, but you probably don't want to spend a lot of time on it yet. Facebook and Instagram are still the most effective platforms, and that's where aesthetic patients are looking for doctors and taking on interest in procedures and booking consultations. Create a strong voice, be consistent in your content, tone your content down, curate other content like inspirational quotes and wellness and feel-good content. Patients are responding very nicely to that kind of content. Video is essential. If you're not doing it, it's important for you to include it in your social strategy. It resonates very well with all demographics of aesthetic patients. Make sure someone, maybe not the physician himself or herself, you can have someone on staff who is managing direct messages and queries in a very timely fashion, like real time if possible. Patients want to be responded to in the channel that they have reached out to you. And if you wait long, like hours or days, it's lost. The moment is lost. Try to do it in minutes or seconds if you can. And that involves having someone with a cell phone who's monitoring your channels. Remember that social media doesn't end at Friday at 6 when you close your practice. Think about more personalized marketing also. If you are smart enough and was able to create a database that's segmented, this is the time to pull that out and really use it. Separate current patients from people who just had a consult and never really bought anything, because you're going to send different messages to each of those groups of patients. And whether that's social or whether that's using e-blasts or newsletters or however you want to reach out to them, you want to target a specific group of patients with the right messages and also at the right time, whether seasonally, day of the week, time of day, or all three. Here are some examples. Let's say you had a patient who came in and had a series of Emsculpt, very happy. Try offering them a second series or treating a new body area that they hadn't done before at some loyalty price point. That would be a good way to bring them back because you're already a known quantity to them. They had a successful experience and it's a treatment they already like. For patients who had Emsculpt, think about what you can bundle into it. Emsculpt goes well with M-Tone. Maybe bring them in for a series of M-Tone treatments. There are lots of possibilities. Virtual events. Virtual events are also mainstream. I think this is going to be an important way to reach patients moving forward. I don't see this going away anytime soon. Lots of formats to use. You can use Zoom, for example. You can use Facebook Live. You can see Live. You can use YouTube for that matter. They're very easy to set up. You can use your website as well. Patients really, I see, are tuning in, and I think that practices are getting very comfortable doing them. So think about the theme you want to put out there and try a bunch of different themes and see what really sticks, what's resonating with the right audience. A beauty chat is an easy one, a master class if you want to teach them something specific, and it could be not even a treatment, it could be related to a treatment, like how aftercare for a laser resurfacing treatment, or how do you get your body in tip-top shape after and maintaining your Emsculpt treatments. There are lots of ways to tie it into treatments they've already had and that are important in your practice. Add virtual event hashtag to everything to get found. People may be searching on Instagram for virtual event and you want yours to pop up. Always get them to tag a friend because you want to increase awareness and get more registrants to get into these events because they can become a patient. Live event themes are not going away, And they are substituting for a lot of in-office events that we've been doing over the years. That doesn't mean you won't be able to go back to that strategy, but for the short term, virtual is where it's at. Think of other creative ways to generate revenue. What do you have on hand? What do you have a lot of inventory of? And how can you repackage it to get it out there and get it out the door? For example, a body rejuvenation package is a no-brainer. M-Sculpt, M-Tone, whatever body treatments you offer with a skincare product that works alongside, that targets areas of the body that are helpful. That would work very nicely. Bundling products with services, you can absolutely increase your average ticket price. So you're giving them more, but you're also getting more on the other end, and they're getting a better result. Let's face it, you know that. We all know that. Design branded combination therapies that have your name on it. You know, your special model of a package of treatments that work well together, because that will distinguish you in a market of a lot of other practices that are basically offers the same or similar services, and they can't be copied, and they're uniquely yours if you put a name on it. Instagram flash sales have done very well during this period as well for prepaid services. If you want to offer a new treatment in the practice, and going forward, I'm sure you will, try to sell it in early to a specific group of patients, maybe your VIPs for this, or your loyal patients, and give them a price point they're not going to get at any other time. That's a good way to roll out new treatments. Be creative. Give them some fun things that they can experience, even for VIP treatments for your main customers. Remember the 80-20 rule? 20% of the patients drive 80% of your revenue. You're bringing in a new treatment, let them try it out for themselves and see if they like it. Get their feedback. Patients love to be asked what they think. It's just human nature. Emphasize value proposition. What are we giving you that you're not getting everywhere else? That's a much better method than just slashing prices and feeling desperate to get money in the door. Keeping patients in your practice, obviously that's the ultimate goal. Make the most of your current patients, because once you lose them, you're going to have to go out and spend more marketing to get new patients into the practice. It is less expensive for you to keep your current patients with you. Think about what else you can do to keep them happy. You don't want them to see you offering discounts and deals to everybody. Something special you have to save for that particular group of patients. Of course, they can tap into the other ones, but there has to be something unique that you keep just for those small patients that spend the most money in your practice. And then, you know, see what you can do to try to win over some of your competitors' patients. What can you do better or different? How can you treat patients better? Treating patients is going to be more important right now than just delivering good results, because a lot of clinics can deliver good results. You want that experience, that FOMO, fear of missing out, got to go there, because that's what they're doing. It's so special to go to your practice over anybody else. Little perks, little niceties, think chocolate on your pillow, are going to count very big right now. And lastly, and this is important, be kind. Be kind. Everybody's sensitive. Everybody's nerves are shot. Everybody's on edge for different reasons or the same reasons. So think about your tone and how you treat people today, especially. Maybe it'll just make us all much nicer people. How you proceed now is going to determine what your future success in aesthetics is going to look like down the road. So think, plan, get your team involved, make it a team effort. And I wish you great success. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Wendy, for that very enlightening presentation. And with no further ado, I'd like to turn the ball over to Suneel Chilukuri to discuss the top tactics he is deploying into his practice right now. Thank you, Wendy.
In this time with the COVID virus and quarantining, I really hope that we can share some good news with you, because it definitely has been hard lately. And as we start off, I want to share this video with you because it was quite inspiring for me.
grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace of me.
So the message that I want to share with you today is hope, because we are going to survive this COVID virus. There's no question, and we're going to come out stronger from this than ever. Let me see if I can get to the next slide here. So today I want to share with you what I consider to be the most important things right now. I'm based out of Houston, Texas. I'm a board certified dermatologist. I'm just going to share our perspective and what we've been doing for the past 4 to 6 weeks of lockdown or in quarantine. What I do want to share with you is I speak for a lot of different companies, and the reason that I talk about the research and the relationships is because I want you to leverage your relationships with each one of your industry partners and see how they can help you in this time. Many of you have already seen that Allergan, they were the first in the aesthetic scene to put out almost a moratorium and an extension on their payments. That was followed later by Galderma and finally with Merce. You saw that also happened in terms of lasers. So many of the financing companies have put a stop or a pause on the payments. Work with your skincare companies. They're working to see how they can help drive more skincare through your office at this time of need. So definitely partner with these, with your industry leaders, and work with them to see how they can help you at this time. So some of my favorite COVID-19 activities, because not everything is negative, I would just want to share 3 things that I've learned about the positivity of this time. So I have not been able to spend this kind of quality time with my family in several years, just based on the amount of time that we travel. In terms of exercise, yes, the gyms are closed, but I didn't realize how weak I really am. And it's interesting having been a weekend warrior and having played sports all my life. What I now do at the gym, it consists of just basically keeping my cardio up and keeping the muscles in shape. But not all those muscles are being trained. So this has been an opportunity for me to learn and add to my routine. And I know that after the quarantine is up, I will be continuing to add to my routine and change things up. So it's been an incredible opportunity. What other opportunity? Well, I've improved my sleeping habits. And this is our pup, Rocky. And you can see, just like him, he likes to cuddle up and take a nap. And so I've been able to take naps and really spend more time regenerating and thinking about what we can do for the future. From an office-related standpoint, we have done a lot of different things, but it all boils around education, education, and education. So that's both with our team members as well as with our patients. From our team members, again, partner with your resources. This is from a advanced practice consultant, and it was complimentary. It's just a chance to reach out to those people who've helped you in the past. And this is Jessica in Houston. And we're talking about how do you create a wow experience. And so this is just projected inside our office. We have all of our team gathered together and discuss during the conference call as well as afterwards, and really brings together some great opportunities to improve how we can create that wow for our patients when we reopen. Taking photographs. I talk about it on the podium all the time, and we really reject somewhere between 50 and 55% of the photographs that we take. How can we be more consistent? So if we're showing off the BTL small arm applicators, what can we do? We have to really make sure that we take proper before photos and then pair them up with the after photos. So we retrained on all of our camera systems, including two of the two-dimensional photographs, as well as the three-dimensional photograph as well. And then for me, I had not had the opportunity to actually try out the arm applicators more than one time. So this is one of our new teammates. She is a recently graduated RN, and she is starting to apply the arm applicators, make sure that we know what it should feel like so we can describe it to our patients. Here's another opportunity. How about treating your own staff members, making sure their technique with lasers and technology and other things is excellent, and taking the opportunity to film a video like this. So look what we did when we changed. We went from a slow pattern to a faster pattern, back to a slow pattern, and making sure that we have complete contact with that skin. So now with this video, I can go ahead and use this to post on Instagram, Facebook, and of course our YouTube. In addition, we're going to work with our web people to go ahead and update what we can put on our web and make sure that it's relevant at this moment. We've reached out to our patients. When we first shut down at that very first time when the governor and the president recommended that we all self-quarantine, we reached out to every single one of our patients in our database that's over the age of 60. I had our practice concierge, and I broke up between 4 of our aestheticians to go ahead and contact everybody that's on that list, just to check in, not to ask for anything, but just to make sure that they're healthy. Do they need any help with anything? Are they scared about anything? Do they need any help with groceries? So it's just an opportunity to reconnect with your patients and your clients. What I'm finding online is social media is running rampant. Everybody's on their phones, they're using their devices. But the problem is with this do-it-yourself skincare, some of the advice is nonsense. So use your expertise, use your medical degree, use your esthetician degree to get out there and really share what works. So this is an opportunity for us to educate our patients as well as potential future patients. Who is a candidate for non-surgical body contouring? And from this simple post, we received a lot of different inquiries asking if they, after the quarantine is done, if these patients can come in and measure out whether they're a good candidate. We've also, again, capitalized on our teammates. So our partners in industry, we learn from them every single day. I'm going into webinars, usually 2 to 3 webinars a day, just to learn by myself, learn with our team, and make sure that when we come back, we're going to be stronger and better than ever. I also use this platform for education of the patient on what's the latest on this coronavirus. Remember, your mask protects me and my mask protects you, but it's not the other way around. So we wanted to make sure that people understand, unless they have an N95 mask, by wearing a mask, it's not going to protect them, but it's going to protect everybody around them from that individual.
Hi everyone, my name is Mai and I am a medical esthetician here at Refresh Dermatology. Today I'll be discussing the benefits of the Mia Smart Professional.
So here's an example of what we've done with our teammates. So we asked each one of our estheticians to film and record what they have passion about. So we started talking a little bit more about at-home skincare devices. What works, what doesn't work. And if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, you can see each one of those videos because they're kept forever. We've improved on what we can offer our patients for at-home skincare. And again, this is a professional series. So how do we do this? We talk about it. We ask patients to reach in with any questions, and we can respond within hours, if not minutes. And we can drop ship that to those patients as well. I'll talk about that in a little bit. We've partnered with our local society. So this is Kim McHugh. She actually owns McHugh Tea Room. And we're just talking about natural ways to decrease stress. So here's the post from this past
Suneel
week.
Chilukuri, Refresh Dermatology. I'm here with the lovely Kim McHugh of McHugh Tea Room, if you can see over our heads. And what we're talking about today is stress. We talked a little bit about stress last time, but I want to talk about stress and what we can do to help our hair and our nail health grow.
So you can see it's an opportunity to improve your social media, improve your education for your patients, learn yourself, and work with your local partners. That's always going to be a long-term benefit for you. And don't forget to give back. We've offered every single one of our frontline workers and first responders free virtual dermatology visits. In addition, we've given away raffles to these members of our society, essential members of our society, and it's an opportunity to give back. Why not feel good yourself? And with this, you can see we just put a little brand there, and when somebody calls in, we just simply ask for their ID and start them on that virtual call. And don't forget, social media is still about being social. We want to make sure that we can share a little bit about ourselves. And one of the opportunities that we've taken is on every Saturday, we're posting something that's positive that's come out of the COVID virus quarantine. This is Kelsey. She's one of our estheticians. You can learn more about her on our Instagram page. Here's just a slide that you might want to take a screenshot of. This kind of summarizes everything that we've done in terms of using relevance in this time, our educational posts, our at-home skincare posts, as well as our social media posts. So it's an opportunity to go ahead and take a screenshot. We've also worked on our protocols and how we can better once we open the office. So one of our estheticians has suggested that we should have a prescription type pad that we can write for the patient. What's their skincare goal? What should we recommend for the future? What products should they be using? What routine should they be effectiveness? So they created this. We went ahead and got it printed and had it already ready to go. So we have one in each one of the 6 rooms, and we are ready for when the patient comes into the office now. We've taken the opportunity again during this downtime to do a little bit of a remodel. We moved in just this past January, if I'm not mistaken, January 1st, and we still haven't finished all the build out. So I've gone to Home Depot and Lowe's online and really picked out some of the accessories, and we want a chance to go ahead and revamp. If you have an office building, you have rooms that need to be painted, this is the perfect time to get that done. So when you are reopened, not only do you look fresh and new, you're going to be sterile. So this is kind of a summary of the things that we've been able to do with this COVID time. We've attended webinars. I've attended practice management sessions. We've organized our office better. We've taken the opportunities also to write blogs and improve our SEO. So each one of our team members has been assigned something that they wanted to learn more about. Let's say it's about stress and hair loss. Okay, we've got one person who's going to take the lead on that, and then that person is going to teach the entire team. I will be attending that same session so I can make sure that we have accurate information, and it's a Q&A, and it's a great opportunity to then translate that blog that's going to go onto your webpage into a simple video post that you can put on your social media page as well. And it's a great opportunity for education. For our patients, we've gone ahead and provided that home skincare consults, as well as home devices that are going to complement our in-office procedures. What have we noticed in terms of patient changes, and what have we changed in our practice due to COVID-19 virus? Well, one of the things I've done always applied to the 80-20 rule, is the Pareto principle. And in this instance, when we talk about pure business and pure finances, 20% of your clients are going to create 80% of your revenue. So what can we do as a benefit from that? Well, we can do 2 things. One, from a financial standpoint, we can identify those VIP clients, and I'm going to show you what we've done for them. The other thing that you can do is you can review your patient list and see who's the 20% that create 80% of the headaches. So that's another way of looking at the Pareto principle. And if those people are the ones creating headaches, you may not want them to partner with you in the future. And this is a nice time that you can revamp your list and make sure that you're seeing patients that you want to see. In terms of the VIP list, I want to always focus on our brand ambassadors. I want to make sure that I'm going to take extra special care of them. As soon as our doors are able to be opened, we're going to have them in right away, and they're the ones who are going to get benefits the most. These are our handwritten notes that we've sent out to our VIPs, and this one says, we apologize for not being able to see you during this unique situation. Hopefully you and your loved ones are staying healthy and safe. please accept this gift to be used toward a brightening treatment with our aesthetic team. We look forward to seeing you again when it's safe. Warmest regards, your Refresh Dermatology family. So we do treat every single person like a family member. And the response I got back is from the patient, because we just gave her a simple $100 gift card that she can use towards a treatment with our aesthetic team. So a brightening treatment in our office actually starts at $250. This simple $100 gift certificate or gift card is just a token. We're not going to charge any extra for this because I don't believe in discounting, but I do believe in doing a value added service. So if somebody comes in for M-Sculpt, somebody comes in for neuromodulators or fillers, then this is going to be that little bonus that they get for coming in and being one of the first to be back in our office. And you can see she's appreciative of it. With telemedicine, we've also noticed that we've been able to actually do some good. So this lovely young lady was referred to me. She called and she had already seen her general dermatologist on a virtual consult, didn't trust in her yet. And she's an 82-year-old woman who comes to me on a regular basis for neuromodulators, fillers, and whatnot. And she says, Dr. C, what can I do? And so we were able to stop her impetigo and make a significant difference. We saw another patient who on virtual consult, and it was seen at 9:30 p.m. that evening, we were able to diagnose with a shingles outbreak. And you can see the daughter was so appreciative. Thank you so much for your help with my mother. We fully believe the early diagnosis was critical and has helped her with a quicker recovery. The shingles are clearing, and we continue to see an ophthalmologist as her eye infection still is present. So it's a neat opportunity. And going forward, I'm going to continue to be able to offer this telemedicine because the virtual consults are not just done for these emergent visits, but also for new patients who may be interested in coming to see your office. And hopefully when this dam breaks and we're able to return to our practices, I really do believe that we're going to have a massive influx of patients coming in the first probably 4 to 6 weeks. But I do think with the recession and the economy, I think there's going to be a slowdown again. And so, you know, how do we continue during that time? How do we continue to add to our database if you need to during that time? And I haven't seen new patients, accept a new patient to our practice since October of 2016, unless it's a word of mouth referral. But now while people are down and they're researching our websites and researching our social media and our Google reviews, people have reached out. And typically those scar patients, people that I don't know from online, they have reached out and I've offered virtual consults. And I'm going to continue to offer this as part of my practice even after the quarantine. I think it's going to be a neat opportunity when we're all able to travel to see whether or not this first screening is a great opportunity to accept that patient to your practice or not. I do want to qualify this. I always make the patient do a little bit of work on their side to make sure that man or woman is really serious about whatever condition they're calling about. So for instance, if we get an acne scar consult, that person has to submit photographs for me to review first and then see if it's something that I can help with. Let's say it's melasma, same exact concept. I want to make sure it's something that I have the opportunity to help that patient with. And so I am going to continue that as part of our practice. And I think it's going to help increase the strength of our esthetician team as well. I've started offering drop shipping, and this is actually just in our family room, and you can see we're putting together a new product line. I'm trying to figure everything out. And what we can do is when somebody asks for an at-home skincare, we're going to create our own little kits. And this is something called Clarity that we just added to our practice because it's something, it does work. It's not going to be a pharmaceutical grade, but it's going to be something that patients can do at home to enhance that time that they're staying away from you. And I can package it up, make it into a lovely little package. And inside each one of these drop ship containers that I'm hand delivering at this moment, I write a thank you note and I also give them a gift. If you look to the left of your screen, this is one of the typical bags that we put together in a Refresh Dermatology bag that's reusable. And I've added 2 complimentary laser sins. So if you don't know about laser sin, it's a neat opportunity to learn about this product. It's a hypochlorous acid that kills 99.9% of bacteria, fungus, yeast, and yes, viruses. And in 2015, it was actually tested against the coronavirus species that we knew of at that time and still showed a 99% kill rate on that. So again, what does it cost me to give this away? Pennies on the dollar based on what's here. And are we doing thousands of dollars worth of skincare per day? I wish I could say that. I cannot say that. But if we can sell $500, $600 in a day, we're able to at least offset one of those salary of the staff members that's there helping us. Communication is critical. And this is communication with your patients. We're reaching out on a weekly basis. So once a week, our practice concierge reaches out to those patients who should have been seen that week. And then I've actually assigned each one of our 4 estheticians to go back from December and start calling patients that we saw December, January, February, not to sell anything, just to check on them, see how they're doing. Are they frustrated? And patients have been very, very appreciative. And the side effect, it's actually led to some skincare consults and sales that I would not have expected. Communicate with your staff. This is essential. So we have a powwow at least twice a week, and I'm giving them updates. This is what I learned today. This is what webinar I shared. I can share information from. So it's a neat opportunity to get together. And one of the feedbacks that we did in our check-ins this morning is, I really like the opportunity that we've gotten to learn more from you. So it's a great opportunity for you to connect with your team and use that time efficiently. So this is just a summary if you want to take a screenshot of what changes we've done with patient care. We've done more of the thank you notes, virtual consults, drop shipping, and communication. Some final thoughts. So what are we going to do when there's reopening? If there's this massive influx, what can we do? I am officially allowed to start seeing patients tomorrow. I am not yet, because I want to make sure that my PPE, the personal protective equipment, is going to be up to par. What should we wear? We're trying to find a consensus on this. So at this time, I've ordered N95 masks for each one of my team members. And then on top, they're going to keep that for 1 week at a time because we don't have enough to go around for the next several months. And they're going to put a surgical mask on top of that. I'm waiting to get a full face shield, but until we get that, we're going to have each one of our team members wear goggles or glasses. We always practice safe social distancing, but safety in the rooms anyway by putting on gloves and making sure that we perform clean procedures. But this is something that you want to look into. And if anybody has any questions on what we're doing, I'll share any protocol that we put together. On reopening, what patients are we going to treat and what should we do? And this is a joke on checking temperature because we don't know whether checking temperature as they walk in comes with anything. But we are noticing that more and more people are posting on social media. They don't feel as good about their body, kind of fit, kind of fat. Well, this applies to a lot of people. And so are patients going to come in asking for M-Sculpt? Are they going to ask for the core to floor? I think so. I think those are going to be the patients who have probably been a little bit more protected financially from some of the recession that's going on right now. And they do want to get back into the routine. And remember, these are not just aesthetic devices. These are opportunities for your patient, your client, to feel better and from a health perspective to improve. So what are we going to offer? We're going to start offering combinations with M-Sculpt, Emsula. If we want to do a bonus on the M-Sculpt, we can add M-Tone to it. So there's neat opportunities here. I still don't think is going to be my core when we first reopen. I think this is going to be my core. How can we do a value added service to anybody who's getting fillers or neuromodulators? Exelis. And the Exelis Ultra has just been a workhorse there in our practice. It's a great device. I'm happy to give away small areas. Let's say we're doing a little bit around the eyes. It takes 20, 25 minutes. They're getting a $400 to $600 value. And my cost on doing business here is about $6. And you can see that we have these long-term results. So while we've had the downtime, I've had our staff scouring through patients that they've treated with in-office procedures and say, grab the before and afters, let's put them side by side so you can share them with the clients when they're coming in as soon as we're open. We've also changed and improved our digital marketing. So I went away from the brochures a long time ago, almost 5 years ago, and I say that shift happens. We are using something called Friend Media, and so it's just a little plug-in device that goes in the back of your TV that updates constantly. So we've improved some of our content messaging, we've improved what we can do on our dashboard, and we continue to post. And if you do a lot of posting, this brings your last 5 social media posts on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and I think maybe even Snapchat, and that comes across your screen. So when we reopen, we have even more content now than ever. we utilize a 3D hologram service, and it's called Esthea Imaging. And this is actually built into our waiting room. So we've updated the content on that as well. Finally, from a practical standpoint, what are we doing from a business plan? If you were fortunate enough to get the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, that's fantastic. But if you have not, don't give up on it. Really go back, connect with your banker. If you have a small local banker, that's even better. If you need to open up a new account, you got to figure out how to do that as well. Unfortunately, a lot of the banks right now are not taking in new accounts into their PPP, but I'm going to share with you 3 resources that are. One of the things that you should look at in you can click on this link down here. It's the U.S. Chamber, and they're giving us financial assistance. These are 0 interest loans that they're telling us about. These are funding. Also, I found fintech companies, and these are also other companies that are showing you how to connect with borrowers and really go ahead and fund your PPP. I've utilized this because if you go to the SBA.gov Paycheck Protection and find, you can see who are the eligible lenders in your area. And then if you want to talk about the most active lenders, usually it's smaller banks, find that small bank that's closest to you. You put your zip code and you can figure it out. Pound on their doors, make sure that they listen to you, develop a relationship. And even if you don't get the PPP loan this time, this is a lesson for you for the future. Make sure that you have a banking contact that's going to go to bat for you. So final thoughts on here, you can see the business plan. Really focus on what's making sense for you. Where can you get money right now to support your opening and reopening? And then what are you doing for marketing? I've actually turned up our spend on marketing. I've never had external spending other than our website. And so we've improved what we can do with social media content. We've improved what we're doing with SEO. I want to make sure that brand awareness is out there as we're ready to reopen. And just ask yourself, what makes you unique? And if you can answer that question, you're retrospectively answering that question, put that out there for patients and clients. And I want to close on this. To me, there's always 6 rules to really kick ass in life. Know that your only competition is who you were yesterday. Earn, save, and invest before you're going to spend. Always avoid negative people. Life is definitely too short. And remember this, if you don't go after what you want, you will never get it. I always find that failure is not the end, but just the beginning. And I truly believe that our habits today are going to decide our future. So with that, I'm going to open up to questions. You're always welcome to contact me anytime. Here's my handles on both Facebook as well as Instagram, so you can DM me. And I'm sure that BTL is going to have my contact available for anybody. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you again, Dr. Chilukuri. Really appreciate that. And with that, we'll turn over to Dr. Barry DiBernardo. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. I know it's been a long webinar, but I have some other tips maybe we can all use that will help us. And let's just go through these. It won't take that long. Advance my slides. My slides are not advanced.
You should be able to hit your enter button. Let's start over.
Okay, welcome everybody, and thank you BTL for having us, and thank you the other presenters. Everything's been very good information from all aspects, and I'm going to end our webinar with some top COVID tactics that we've been using, and you may know some of these, you might not, but everything's helpful in these times. So this would have been our busiest season of the year, getting patients ready for the summer, bodies, everything else, but we don't know what this summer is going to look like, and we don't know who's going to be coming in or what they're going to want to be doing. So we have to be ready. But we're still closed, and in New Jersey, we believe we'll be closed for another month or so. So what are we doing, and what can we do ready? So the 3 things that we've been looking at during these times, other than all the other good suggestions that Wendy and Suneel talked about. We're getting every part of the office cleaned, not only physical cleaning, but areas that had to be organized, just things. We're so busy, we don't have time to do all those things. So it is all getting done now. And the three things I want to give to you as categories are virtual consults, which we can do now, e-commerce that we can do now, and some apps that might be helpful to us as well. So the virtual consults, Dr. Goldberg gave us a very good synopsis on what to do, what not to do. And when you're communicating with the patients, as he said, we are, especially if we're doing plastic surgery consultations and they may be showing us body parts, you want this software to be compliant for the transmitted information. You want to communicate with them securely and keep that. It's best if that information is integrated with your practice management software, so their appointments, their messaging, all of that is consistent. And you do want to promote these, the ability that you can do these virtual consults to your database by email and other means of communications. So the software that we use, fortunately, I changed softwares in January and switched to Simplast. I did a big deep dive on lots of practice management softwares. None were perfect, but Simplast seemed to be most ahead of the game with some of these things, and also working at our request going forward. And the one thing that I was impressed with before I knew about what this virus was going to be is that it did telehealth, it did telemedicine, and these were secure video visit virtual appointments, HIPAA secured texting, multimedia capturing, file sharing, the notes, appointment reminders, and the patient has an app also. So this is all secure, and I'm trying to show you some of these companies that have been helping out. Suneel mentioned go to all your vendors and see how they can help. Well, some of the vendors I'm talking about will help us during these times. At least on your left, you can see those who don't have a telecommunication system that's secure. Simplast will provide it to you for 2 months. You don't have to continue with them. You can just use it. No contracts. So you can do this through Simplast for the next few months if you want. Obviously, they do that because they hope you like it and continue. But that's a service they're doing. But I did sign up for this software prior, before I knew anything, which was helpful. The other thing we're looking at, or we looked at, was, okay, no one's coming in here. How can we bring money into the practice? And the teleconferencing, that's good for consults. We're lining people up for when we open, but it really doesn't bring in money into an aesthetic practice. So I looked at, well, what can we do to keep people looking their best right now, at least at home? Suneel mentioned home therapies, devices you can use at home, but we really took a deep dive into our very high-end skincare that they had been on, some are going on. And when you're doing e-commerce, you want to make sure that the patients are getting the products. Obviously, they can call your office, you can speak to them about what they need, and then pack it up and ship it. We wanted to make sure our website had everything on there. The commerce store was working, the cart was working, specials we could put in there, and that would be something you want to check to make sure it's working. Test it. I bought one of the products myself to make sure the staff got my credit card charge, that it got shipped to me. So do your testing. And the other thing we discussed this week was, even though we're going to wait another, who knows, 4, 6, 8 weeks, we can offer the patients laser resurfacing treatments later, but they do need to prep, and they can use this time to prepare their skin at home, which they would do anyway. So that was another thought that we had. Now, the final thing I'll talk about are some apps for those on who are plastic surgeons. We can't do surgery, we can't do elective procedures right now, so we're basically shut down on the surgical end. There are apps that we've been using that drive patients, particularly children with urgent lacerations, to the office. They hit a button on their phone and it's right away. The ERs and the hospitals do not want these patients right now. Those patients do not want to go to those places right now. So this is a way we can direct them to get taken care of when they're bleeding and screaming and the mothers and fathers are panicking. And at least that is another source of income, emergent income, in addition to the e-commerce. So those were some of the ways that we can bring income now. The other app is something I just learned about recently when we look at when patients start coming back into the practice, how are we going to monitor them, handle them, and see what's happening with their experience with the COVID-19. This is an app that is no cost to the patients and no cost to the doctors. It's called Care Expand, and patients can put their information here that they can see, you can see, to kind of screen them. And you see on the screen, they can click on any symptoms they might be having. It's logging it into the system. And the other thing that they can see is solid scoring, which you can see their possible COVID, probable, confirmed case, or they're in remission. All of these can be monitored from the app. And then they get a dashboard. You see their dashboard of how things are happening and where they are, and do you want them in your office or not? And this is a good tool to monitor that. If they want to, they get a teleconsultation with an emergency room physician. They can click a button to get testing where it directs them. So this seems to be an app that might be very helpful to us as we're coming back online. So those are just a few of my thoughts of what we are doing now, what we will be doing, and again, any way any of us can help each other, we are. I thank everyone else who gave all those other good thoughts and good information, and once again, thank you to BTL and their team for doing this for us in this time, this difficult time. And as Wendy said, I'm sure it's all going to be better. It's just when will it be and how fast will it be? So thank you, everybody, and good luck to you all.
Thank you, Dr. DiBernardo. And with that, we want to thank each and every single one of you for your attendance today. If you have any questions, comments, and/or concerns, do not hesitate to reach out to your local BTL representative or any members of our physician panel. Thank you once again.